We have found what looks to be an oxymoron in the FAA regs. Who would have thought? Let's find out in the hangar. Hi, I'm Dan Milliken.
And I'm Greta Torvart.
All right, Greta, I'm wearing my Snoopy shirt. You know what that means?
I don't know. What does that mean?
So we have one of the most gruff, most intimidating DPEs, designated pilot examiners, in the business here with us, and he needs Snoopy to kind of help the students feel at ease.
Oh, okay.
Joey Johnson. Joey, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, Joey.
Thanks
Nice
for that
to meet
description.
you.
Now I'm never going to get a phone call.
Now,
So-
Joey, before we get into this whole oxymoron bet, I hear that you had an emergency landing recently in Warburg. I'd
Yeah,
like to hear about that.
I had my 1 in a million last week. So on the commercial check ride, I always kind of harp on the fact that you get one opportunity to get it right on the Power Off 180, and I had my one opportunity last week. We just bought a 3/4 scale P-51 Mustang, and basically lost power on it just south of Phoenix, about 60 miles, and I had to glide it in and land in a little airport, Casa Grande. So couldn't have landed at a better place. It turns out that the Stearman Restore Association president is there.
And you
And
have
I
a
love
Stearman.
Stearman's, and he had one of my partners had a friend that had a hangar there, so we've been very fortunate in that respect that we were able to get it in a hangar and get the repairs started, right away. So
On the 3/4 scale, is that still the Merlin engine?
no, it's a 700 horsepower engine, so it's a lot
still,
of power.
It's got power, yeah.
But it is a 540 big block V8, and it's turning a King Air prop with a gearbox that
Oh, wow.
spools it down. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Greta, Joey actually reached out to me. I knew I wanted to have him on the show. And the big problem that you're having, you were real passionate about it. I'd never even heard this term, the supervised solo. Oh, that's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
What is
supervised solo.
this?
So in the regs for the commercial pilot, FAR 61121, and the various paragraphs A, B, C, and so on for the single, commercial, multi-commercial, and so on, allows it says that they have to have 10 hours of solo time as part of their flight training. And it lists some stipulations. I'm sure you're familiar with the long cross country,
Right.
The night time and the night landings and all that. And it says it must be done solo. And it says, or performing the duties of pilot and command under the supervision of an authorized instructor. So, and then there's actually some letters of interpretation by the FAA that go on to explain that when doing this, and it is a substitute for solo time, and therefore cannot be logged as dual, and the instructor should not be giving any instruction during that time.
So the instructor is just sitting there, quiet, reading a book or listening to music or movies on his iPhone.
Not knowing the intent of the reg when it was written, but just kind of speculating, all right? If, let's say, for example, you got your private single engine, your instrument single engine, and you didn't really have any desire to fly commercially single engine, but you did multi-engine, you could build your time to the required minimums, and then from that point, the 20-hour flight training stipulation could all be done in a multi-engine airplane. Because you don't have a category class rating, one of two things happens. You either get a 6131 endorsement that says you've been found qualified to act pilot and command and solo flight only of this aircraft, of this twin, or you perform the duties of a PIC under the supervision of a multi-engine instructor. So he would sit over there and allow you to do your long cross-country, do your nighttime, do your landings and so forth in the twin-engine airplane, acting as PIC as a substitute for the solo. But he cannot be giving you dual during that time. So that's, honestly, I think that's what the intent was maybe at some point, but.
So why would solo time be important to somebody?
So here's what the solo does. When you're out there by yourself, think of it like when you first got your driver's license. Most pilots have had that experience, obviously, right? So when they get their driver's license for the very first time and mom and dad lets them go out on the road, they think, I'm free. I get to make my own decisions and do these types of things. And that's what solo does. It builds a level of confidence within the student, or applicant as they mature as a pilot. And minus this, you don't get that. I don't have anything to equate it to that's coming to my mind right now. But think of it as an adult who's never had to go through the stages of rites of passage to become an adult.
Right, nearly running out of gas in your car or having a flat tire.
Exactly, or needing to add oil to it or something to that effect, right? So they haven't had these experiences, and now all of a sudden they're out on the freeway. in their car, and they have one of these experiences, and they don't know how to handle it because they've always had someone sitting in the seat next to them to address it or save them, if you will.
And in your analogy, they've got this advanced certificate for driving on the highway, and they don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do.
You don't have the practical experience.
That's
then.
correct. You don't have the actual experience of having to make that decision by yourself. We all love having, a backup plan, a go-to, or something to that effect, so that should something go wrong, we don't feel isolated, alone, and scared, so to speak, right? But without this solo time, that's essentially what you are running into. Is you're starting to see drivers, if you will, who are on the roads and they don't have this experience by themselves, and they haven't had to make those decisions by themselves because there's always been someone sitting next to them. And be that as it may, that the instructor is not allowed to give dual, I'm certain that I would speculate, let me put it that way, that there's conversations taking place in that cockpit that
No.
probably shouldn't be.
Right.
Just like DPs never give instruction on a check ride.
DP's never give instruction on a check ride.
Yeah. Well, why is this a problem? I mean, what are you seeing as a DPE when you're going for these advanced certification check rides and you're finding out that these guys have never really been alone? I mean, what's the problem?
Decision making,
Okay.
aeronautical decision making, and judgment. They've not had to exercise their own skills and judgment and suffer the consequences of that judgment.
So they're getting into a situation and they're going, and you may be, as DPE, you present them with the situation, and they go, I don't know.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm not certain what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody's always been there to hold their hand, essentially.
Well, whether they're actually holding it and providing dual
Right.
incorrectly
Right.
or not.
Psychologically, at least.
Yes,
Yeah.
psychologically, they know that there's someone sitting over here who has more experience, more time, that should I
Right.
get in a bind, this person can save me.
Right.
They haven't had that. How many times have you ever been in a situation where you were truly by yourself and you did not have experience to deal with that situation and you felt alone?
Oh, yes, hideous feeling.
Yeah. So that's oftentimes what you're going to run into from a psychological standpoint. And so what happens is you will see them freeze.
Okay.
They will lock up because they don't know what to do, where to turn, and so on. And it's.
Well, I'm laughing because I remember, Brian Turner from Just Plain Silly and I and another guy went through our multi-engine, and we all trained together, and then you did the check rides for two of us, and
Yeah.
Brian Turner included. So Brian tells the story that he went on his multi-check ride with you as the DPE, and you guys are taking off, and you're doing the simulated or the engine failure or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
That's what was next. Yes.
Yeah, and you're just, what are you gonna do, Brian? You're about to die. Your family are about to die. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. So I don't know that I was that passionate about it, but Brian.
To hear Brian, I was
Brian,
toned down there.
Yeah. So so the way that scenario went was once we reached the minimum required altitude, I said, "Do you see that bird over there?" And of course, he turned his attention, not realizing that I was about to introduce the engine failure. So the minute he took his hands off and began to look for the bird, I pulled the engine. I said, "The engine just failed, Brian. What are you going to do now?" And so it was. And the sheer fear in his face,
Right.
told the story. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, So
Well,
it's-
fortunately, Brian's had that real solo time and not just supervised solo time.
Yeah.
So eventually he got through
yeah,
it.
he immediately kicked in the gear
Yeah.
and took care of the situation. So
All right. What's the solution here?
I don't know what the solution is. Is typically what we're running into now is with the newer airplanes that are coming onto the market, even the Pipers and the Cessnas, we're talking $500,000 airplanes.
Right.
For a four-place all-glass cockpit with air conditioning and so on.
If you're lucky, it's $500,000.
Yeah, if you're lucky, you'll get it for
Low end.
that. And so, if a student in our time coming up, an airplane was $30,000-$40,000, and if you wrecked it, no big deal. For the insurance company, they were collecting a tenth of that, right? In insurance premiums every year, and so if they had one crash a year, it was not a big deal. But if you have an incident now and you have to total a $800,000 airplane, that's huge to the insurance company. So they're starting to drive the industry to where they don't want the students out there solo with the X amount of hours. If you've bought insurance, and I know you have, one of the first things asked you is how much total time, how much time and type et cetera,
Exactly.
because they're trying to mitigate the risk and assess how big of a risk is Dan to us. You know, is he going to take this airplane out here and ball it up for us right off the bat? We ran into this on our Mustang when we bought it. You know, a high performance, complex fighter aircraft, and which none of us had ever flown.
700 horsepower.
700 horsepower. And even though one of our partners was an ag guy with 20,000 hours of tailwheel time, it was still, you guys have to get your insurance check out before we will cover you, you know. So I do believe, and this is my personal insight, is that insurance is starting to kind of drive the training, because they're stating, okay, we don't want this student with 150 hours, 300 miles from home, in our $500,000 airplane by themselves. So what we're starting to see now is the schools and the insurance companies are starting to say, okay, well, you're going to go supervised solo. The regs permit it, so we're going to send you out with an instructor. And, you know, clearly if something went wrong, the instructor's going to step in and take over, not let anything destroy the airplane or themselves. I mean, that's what I would do. If I were sitting in an airplane conducting supervised solo, the engine failed, and it became clear that the student was about to kill me and the airplane, I'm going to step in. It's the same thing that we do on check rides. We state on the check ride at the beginning, as part of the pre-flight discussion, if there's an emergency, the test is over. And our objective now becomes get the airplane and ourselves safely on the ground.
But it almost seems like it's just kicking the can down the road, isn't it? Because if
Potentially.
right, because if you have all the supervised solo time, and again, like you say, they haven't had that real practical experience being one
To
their
make the
own.
decision on their own and suffer the consequences of that decision.
Right.
That's
So
correct.
aren't those consequences just potentially going to show up later down the road?
They could.
They're
They
still,
could.
those insurance companies are still going to incur that, just maybe later.
Could be. I mean, that's again, you know, if we all had the the crystal ball to predict what was going to happen. Are we seeing an increase in the number of incidents and accidents? I would venture to say that we have. I know here recently there's been a number of high-profile incidents and accidents that have occurred. There's a lot of discussion about what caused them, and I think that's just human nature, to be quite frankly speaking about it. People want to know what happened. And more importantly, why did this happen? Because they want to put a finger on a reason or a cause. And so we have a lot of folks coming out and saying, well, this is what I think happened. And I like it when I see the facts presented and allow me to formulate my own opinion.
Right.
And so I see that from your show. Oftentimes you'll put out the facts and you'll say, well, this is what we know, and then let people form their own opinion.
You bring up the fact about insurance driving the supervised solo thing, but as you talked about it, I thought about, well, if they're throwing an instructor on a 300-mile cross country, the school's getting the instructor's not getting paid, right?
Right, he's
so
being
the
paid.
schools get the double dip.
It's potential. There's a potential for that, because I do know that a lot of the schools in their programs, they have what they determine and define as crew cross country trips or time building. So the students got to get the time built up to meet the minimum number of hours.
So maybe it's not the full amount that you would normally pay an instructor. It'll be.
No, what I'm referring to is, so let's say that you and your partner here are both enrolled in flight school at XYZ Flight School.
Okay.
And you've both accomplished your private along the same time frame.
Okay.
Okay. So now you have to build your hours towards your cross country for your instrument, and also your total time for your commercial. What the schools are doing, and if I were a business owner, I can't say that I wouldn't do this as well. Okay.
Right.
But the regs do allow. Okay, and there's been numerous letters of interpretation by the chief counsel of the FAA that states, Dan, you can fly the airplane, and you're going to fly under the hood, and you're going to conduct this cross-country simulated instrument. Now, as such, you will require a safety pilot. In steps your partner, okay? She's going to act as the safety pilot, but she's also going to act as the designated PIC.
So as long as we both have pilot certificates, in this case the private, then I'm not having to pay for an instructor. We both get to count the time.
That's correct. There are some limitations on how the time is accumulated, but she can essentially log total time as the acting PIC, of course single engine, as well. She would not be able to log the cross-country time. However, there's a cross-country stipulation, there's a total time stipulation. So during the leg that she's acting PIC, she's meeting that total time requirement. You're sole manipulator of the controls under the hood. So as such, 6151 allows you, and you're properly rated for the airplane, allows you to log PIC time. You made the takeoff, you made the landing, therefore under 61.1 you allowed to log the cross-country time, and of course it's total time as well. So you're knocking out cross-country in total, she's knocking out total. Land at the destination, reverse the roles. She takes the left seat, puts the hood on. She is sole manipulator of the controls, flies home now. Dan is acting PIC and safety pilot, required crew member. You log total time. She now logs total and cross-country time. So we're killing two birds with one stone on the trip.
And I think that a lot of students get confused about this because they think there can only be one person logging PIC, but that's not true.
That is not true, and there's a number of letters of interpretation that clearly define this.
Okay, so moving forward, for the students out there who are faced with this, they hear you and they think, I need to have better training, but they're at a school that says you can only do supervised solo. What can they do to help mature their skills?
One of the things that they could do is, if they have the resources, would be to rent and fly solo, of course, by themselves.
Okay.
Outside of the school. There's a lot of applicants and students that do that. Their family owns an airplane, so once they're rated to fly that airplane, they'll go fly that airplane. This is above and beyond far outside, whether it's Part 61 or Part 91, 141 flight school that they may be attending. They'll do that. In those types of situations, you generally see a much more thoroughly qualified, ready to perform applicant versus the person who went through a 141 program and is showing up at my table with 175 hours total time for the commercial ride. And if you wanted to break it down into how much solo time they potentially could be, and I don't know what we're doing, I want you to understand this discussion, is we're trying to say the worst of the worst, all right? And I don't mean that from a pilot ability or aptitude situation. I'm saying the minimum of the minimum, all right? So under Part 141, there's a 5-hour stipulation for solo under Part 141, and that's it. Okay?
Wow.
For the instrument under, the total time requirement at that point is 35 hours. So let's say you have a star student who gets through the program in exactly 35 hours. Okay? They have 5 hours of solo, and their check ride was an hour and a half, which is counted as PIC, but it truly wasn't solo.
Right.
But anyway, at that point, they have about 6.5 hours of real PIC time, because the examiner certainly isn't going to help them, or is not supposed to be helping them. And then they move forward into their instrument training. The instrument training under Part 141 is, again, an additional 35 hours of training, but there's no solo stipulation, just a cross.
So now they get past instrument and they've had still 6.5 hours.
5 hours of solo and
Wow.
1.5 hour of PIC time that someone wasn't supporting them.
Wow.
And then at that point, they move into their commercial training, and this is all under Part 141, and I think it's Appendix C or D. I'm getting old, Dan. Forgive me, my memory slipped.
Well, I'm sitting here trying to, what I really want to do is get you to say something that'll get you in trouble. So that's what I'm trying to do with the FAA.
Right. So we'll keep trying, because that keeps me on my
You're
toes.
doing great, though. You're dodging every bullet
right.
I throw at you.
So the commercial applicant now has to have 120 hours total time, of which 55 was training. And then when you break that further down, it'll say that they have to have the solo time, right? And but again, it's reduced. Okay. I don't have a FAR aim on me, and I should have looked at this beforehand, but I believe it's the same stipulation. It's 5 hours of solo. It may be 10, but nonetheless, let's just say best case it's 10, worst case it's 5. Okay. And they've got to go get their long cross country completed. They've got to get their nighttime requirements met. I do believe it's 10 now that I think about it, along with their landings and so on. And so now what you have coming out the other end, okay, and let's say we have a star applicant who has met every threshold right on the mark. He has 120 hours of flight time, 10 of which to 15 of which is all the solo they've seen.
Wow.
So barely 10% of their flight time have they been in a cockpit by themselves. So that, in my opinion alone, certainly impacts their ability to make decisions, their judgment, and so on, because they haven't had the opportunity to go out and have something go wrong and then have to perform and see what the outcome of that performance was.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get one chance.
All right, that's good stuff. Joey, thanks for coming on. Before we go away, I want to let you guys know, in addition to all this, Joey runs a nonprofit that helps transition military into aviation.
That's correct.
So Joey, real quick, talk about the Ashton.
Okay, so it's named after my son, who we lost 4 years ago. Ashton Johnson Memorial Cloud Dancer Scholarship is how most people know it, Cloud Dancer Scholarship. And we take veterans coming out of the military who were not pilots in the military, and we help them make the transition to career professional pilots by providing them with a $10,000 scholarship, gets them off the ground towards their private pilot certificate. As prices go up, we'll probably increase this, but the foundation has been phenomenally successful. We do 5 of those a year. We're now going to go to 6 a year. We were originally running just 1 round of scholarships. I think we're going to split that into 2 rounds now of 3 apiece.
That's awesome.
So it'll be six scholarships a year. And each year, our big fundraiser is the gala, and it's in the fall in October. And just watch the social media. You'll see the posts from our social media managers about the gala that comes up.
And where's the best place online to find out that?
We're on Facebook, Instagram, and I believe we have a TikTok. You would think I would know, right? But our social media manager, she's really, really good. She's a JSX pilot. I mentored her
Okay.
all the way through. And our website, clouddancerscholarship.org, you can also find information there.
All right, so clouddancerscholarship.org. Thank you again, Joey, for
Yes,
coming
sir.
on,
Yes, sir.
talking about
Yes, ma'am.
Nice talking to you.
And thank you guys for watching. And we talked about insurance and that they want to know who they're insuring. And I highly recommend, if you need insurance, Clemens Insurance, Jerry there, he went to bat for me and got my rates reduced significantly because he knew what to ask. So check out clemensinsurance.net. Also, flyingeyesoptics.com. Use our discount code, taking off all caps, one word, for 10% off. Marshall Protective Services, personal protection elevated at mpsprotects.com, and zvision, xcvision.com, the brightest landing and taxi lights out there. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time
In the hangar.